Welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset space. I'm your host, Christine Lee, and joining me are my co-hosts, CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Capital Markets, Lewitinn, as well as Managing Director of International Content, Emily Parker. Good morning. Happy Monday, you two. We see Bitcoin is breaching 60. ETH made an all-time high over the weekend.
Yes, it did. But nonetheless, it's still struggling to make any meaningful move above there. You know, we're seeing the all-time highs hit in both in Ether, getting close there on Bitcoin. But until we get some serious numbers, you know, like the 65,000s, it's still wait and see. There's still a question of whether or not the market's overbought.
Right. Well, markets are pointing down today, though, but Bitcoin is, over 60,000. I do see some alts coming down. Taking a look at the BTX price the XBX Bitcoin price, it's trading at 60,420,000. Bitcoin is up about 1.25% over the past 24 hours, and the ETX Ether price right now is at 21.52. ETH is trading up about 0.4% after breaking that all-time high over the weekend. According to Trade Block data, the most reliable reference price for institutions since 2014, with billions in assets under management benchmarked against it. All right, so you're not too convinced on the numbers,
no.
Lawrence? No. What's your take?
No. We there is a question on the technical analysis side as to whether or not the market's overbought. That's a couple of comments that we've had posted, for instance, on CoinDesk. Dominic Dantes has said it, and several other technical analysts as well, that there is indication that the market's just not ready to break above that level. That might change over the course of this week. We'll see. We're keeping an eye on a lot of things, of course.
Well, we've got a big week. It is Coinbase direct listing week, right, Emily? What are your thoughts on how that might
Coinbase week, all
things?
Coinbase all the time. That is the $100 billion question because we don't even know. I've seen wild fluctuations for predictions on this valuation. So for a while, the $100 billion was being tossed around as the valuation. But now, according to an article by our colleague Dominic Dantes, valuations actually range anywhere from 19 billion to 230 billion. So that's a pretty wide range. And a lot of it has to do with just the volatility of the crypto market, because a lot of Coinbase's fate is tied to the fate of the cryptocurrency market as a whole. We are now in a crazy bull run. Their earnings were off the charts, but a lot of that has to do with just how well Bitcoin is doing. So I think the big question is, what is the future of crypto? And that will shed a lot of light on how well Coinbase is going to do over the long term.
And Lawrence, Daniel Loeb's 17 billion hedge fund is keeping crypto with Coinbase. Significance of that?
Yeah, it's kind of funny how a lot of people in crypto don't know who Daniel Loeb is. I don't want to name names, but people are like, who is that guy? And I'm like, really? You've never heard of him? For people who aren't familiar, he shook up boards like Sony, where he got into a fight with George Clooney. If you go back in some archives of some of the other financial publications, you'll see that wonderful feud. But also Yahoo and Sotheby's. We have a guest on today who's coming in from Sotheby's. Well, Dan Loeb shook that place up. And, this is significant because he's very old school in the sense that not too old school because of the way he operates his hedge fund, but he is a traditional finance success story for a lot of people. And when the CoinDesk story broke, he linked to it on his Twitter profile. We put laser eyes on his profile, and he said he was outed as a hodler. So this is significant for old school finance.
Very interesting. All right. Let's take a look at our first guest, who heads a crypto lending and rewards earning platform with over 10 billion in cryptocurrencies under management. Users can earn up to 15% annual percentage yield in rewards on their crypto assets and access loans, starting at 1% interest rates. Joining us now is Celsius Network CEO Alex Mashinsky. Welcome, Alex.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. All right. So when we last spoke, it was January. You had about 300,000 users worldwide and 350 institutional customers. What's an update on the growth story for Celsius?
Sure. So we just crossed 14 billion in assets and almost 600,000 users, over close to 400 institutional users and over 1,000 corporate accounts. So that's the kind of the latest count.
Okay. And what kind of projects and investors are you lending to? Obviously, you have a big lending business.
Sure. So we really are a rewards program, meaning our customers, our hodlers, come to Celsius to earn yield. We've paid over $350 million worth of income or interest to these users. About half of them, or 40% of them, are from Europe, another 35% from the US, and the rest are from other places around the world. We earn the yield from lending to institutions, exchanges, DeFi, and so on. So we basically provide the liquidity on all the different platforms, and you've seen probably balances on exchanges go down. And in turn, a lot of these exchanges are actually borrowing from Celsius.
And are you giving them Bitcoin-backed cash loans or cash-backed Bitcoin loans or something different?
Most institutions borrow Bitcoin against, basically they're just looking to borrow Bitcoin. They give us other type of collateral. So it's either fiat or the retail users, some of them need loans, margin loans, so just like you get from your broker. And for those, we mostly give you the stable coins or dollars. We don't lend them Bitcoin or things like that.
So even Coinbase admitted in their S1 that DeFi and decentralized exchanges were posing a threat to their business. Does DeFi pose a challenge to more centralized crypto lending models?
We would say we're the largest participant in DeFi today. So it's not a challenge. I mean, we're the ones fueling the DeFi revolution. Celsius was the first company in the world to create this yield idea before any DeFi company. And we were the first in the world to pay with the token. So before Uniswap, before Compound, where you could earn the token in addition to the yield. The Cell token was the first one to offer that. So we would proudly say that we're part of the DeFi revolution. We just called it money over IP, and everybody called it DeFi. Everybody else called it DeFi. So, but we definitely are a very large participant.
But would you characterize your platform as decentralized?
Sure. We support more protocols than any other DeFi platform. So we support right now 15 different blockchains. And we have one leg in the centralized world, meaning we support fiat and SEPA and SWIFT and so on and so on. But on the other side, we support every major protocol out there, right? Every major blockchain out there. So definitely decentralized, definitely using all the infrastructure and everything that's happening. And we develop a lot of stuff ourselves. As I mentioned before, we innovate every day. So those are things that help the DeFi community, right? In addition to providing liquidity.
What kind of spreads are you charging? The difference between borrowers, what you're paying to you're charging your borrowers and what you're paying to your depositors?
Yeah, so we provide, since day one, we provided up to 80% of what we create, the yield we create, back to our community. If you go on Compound or Aave and you look at the difference between the borrow and the lend, you will see that for most coins, they charge more than 20%, meaning the gap in price between what they pay and what they charge is much more than 20%. So Celsius is definitely a more efficient version.
Yeah, are you in any way hypothecating any of your collateral that you receive from the borrowers? And if so, I mean, isn't that a form of fractional reserve banking then?
Well, I would look. Everybody on Aave on Compound does the same thing, because when you borrow from Aave, you redeposit, right? You redeposit your collateral and you borrow again, and you do it to farm. Farming is rehypothecation. What is farming? It's just called in a nice world called farming, but it's really rehypothecation. Everybody in crypto rehypothecates, and like I said, we don't do LTVs higher than 50%. So if anything, Celsius is a safer platform, because Aave, Compound, other platform would go all the way to 75%. So if anyone is more leveraged, if you call that leverage, if anyone is more leveraged, I would say the other platforms are. But everybody in DeFi is not even a comparison to any of the banks. Deutsche Bank has 50-to-1 leverage. We're talking about 0.75%, right? So
speaking of
we're an order of magnitude safer than Deutsche, 2 orders of magnitude, safer than Deutsche Bank.
So are you involved in perpetual futures trading at all? Are you guys do anything with that, with your deposits?
We do not. Our job is just to borrow land and earn yield. We don't do any kind of exotic derivatives.
Alex, when we last spoke, you also mentioned that Celsius was considering participating in Cred's bankruptcy auction. Cred was a crypto lender and former competitor of yours. First, have you made a decision on that, and what lessons can be learned from Cred?
Sure. So we are, we're adding now over $1 billion a month in assets, and Cred was just too small of an opportunity, so we decided not to pursue that. But the lesson to depositors is that you have to really pay attention to the credibility of the company, to the track record, to what they've done, to be able to decide who you trust and who you don't trust. Celsius provides full transparency. You can see all of our numbers published daily. So I think that provides a much better visibility into what happens in Celsius every day.
Alex, you've had several funding rounds. When do you expect to turn a profit so you wouldn't have to go back into the markets and ask for more money?
We've made several statements that we're profitable. We've only had one round that we opened to the community. We did not open it because we needed funding. And we are doing another round right now to bring institutional investors in, but that's a much higher valuation. Sorry.
Any interest in going public in the near term, or next year?
Well, let's see how Coinbase does. Like you said before I joined, I think there's a tremendous excitement about crypto, and Coinbase is the first through the gate. So we can see what happens to the rest of the the rest of the group here. And we're definitely now getting to scale. Again, adding $1 billion a month. So I'm hoping that if the timing is right, I mean, the only reason we would go public is to lower our cost of capital.
All right. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that was Celsius Network CEO Alex Mashinsky. Coming up, crypto markets update with Marketgauge Managing Director Michele Schneider. Time now for the daily forecast, an update on what's happening in the Asia crypto markets. Here's Angie Lau of Forecast News.
Welcome to the Daily Forecast, April 12th, 2021. The total market capitalization of crypto now over $2 trillion US, once again up by more than 2% in the last 24 hours. I'm Angie Lau, editor-in-chief of Forecast News. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world. As crypto prices continue to rise, there's no shortage of con artists looking to take advantage of the situation. Over here in Hong Kong, bogus investments in crypto continue to lure in innocent victims on social media. That's one of the tactics a fraud ring used to cash in over $45 million before Hong Kong police pounced on them. The Hong Kong government, by the way, is currently mulling a ban on retail crypto traders. That means only professional investors will be allowed to trade crypto under the proposal, or have at least $1 million worth of assets. That's only 7% of the population. We spoke to Ursula McCormick today, a blockchain and financial regulatory lawyer at King & Wood Mallesons, and asked her what she thinks will happen to the retail trading scene in the city.
If we have a situation where retail cannot access a market here, then they will look elsewhere. And what that realistically means is that they will need to find offshore offshore exchanges, or indeed we'll see a lot more exchanges that are running the risk of not being regulated.
Once Hong Kong's policy is in place, the regulatory body, the SFC here, wants all virtual asset trading platforms regulated, supervised, and monitored. And currently there are several global exchanges with operations in Hong Kong. Question is, how many more will be operational if policy changes? It's something we're keeping an eye on right here at Forecast News. All right, taking a look at Bitcoin prices. It floated around the $60,000 mark by 4 p.m. Hong Kong time, Asia trading hours. And taking a broader look at the equity markets here in the Asia Pacific, South Korea's Kospi edged up, with investors looking ahead to positive Q1 earnings reports there. In China, the Shanghai Composite fell 1% amid more concerns of Beijing tightening its grip on the property sector. Meanwhile, more Asian central banks urge the public to exercise caution when purchasing crypto. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka warned that investing in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other assets come with significant risks, and some reasons that they listed were the high volatility of virtual currencies and the higher chance of them being used for terrorist financing activities. All right, just how are cryptocurrencies doing? Well, at the close of Asia's market day today, most of them were in the green. Binance Coin surged by 18.5% compared to the same time yesterday. XRP might be helped by the latest support we're seeing out of Asia. OneChain CEO Jack Liu said on Twitter they're days away from the XRP token officially joining their blockchain network. Holders of the XRP token will soon be able to use them for decentralized finance activities on OneChain's network, like liquidity mining and yield farming. Meanwhile, staying on DeFi in Asia, over in Thailand, Kasenkorn Bank, the #1 mobile banking provider, sees DeFi as a key exploration this year to improve access to their financial services. Ambitious plans to introduce decentralized finance to the mainstream from China, Thailand, and don't forget South Korea's internal agency recommendation for the country to think about how to lead in DeFi. All of this really adding up to Asia trying to position itself in being instrumental in applying DeFi, decentralized finance, to CeFi, centralized finance. And that's the daily forecast from our vantage point right here in Asia. I'm Forecast Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Until the next time.
The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager. Checking in on Bitcoin, the XBX Bitcoin price right now trading at $60,400 and just under $40. Bitcoin is up about 1.34% over the past 24 hours, and the ETX Ether price also up at $21.56, trading above 0.7% over the past 24 hours, according to TradeBlock data. And joining us now to discuss the crypto markets and more is Marketgauge Managing Director Michele Schneider in New Mexico. Welcome, Michele.
Nice to be here.
All right, so this is a big week in terms of we're having the first huge crypto company have a direct listing on the Nasdaq, $300 per share, 100 billion valuation. Some say it should be worth more. Others argue less. Where do you position yourself?
Well, at this point, like most of the IPOs we've seen over the course of the year, of course, this one being probably the most exciting, the overvaluations and the extremely high price to start could see immediate follow through. And then there could be some reality that happens afterwards and some selling off. I don't think necessarily it serves anybody to try to make a prediction on Wednesday, rather than we'll just watch and see what happens and give it a little bit of time to dust settle. But the overall crypto space is just exploded. And it's not a surprise, of course, but the big news this week, besides the Coinbase, was all the alt currencies that made huge moves. And the volatility on Bitcoin, even though people are talking about it, is actually at a 3-month low. So it's a very interesting situation here to see where dust is settling. Ethereum, as you mentioned before, yes, has gone up, made a new all-time high. Bitcoin is back over 60, but Binance was the big news as the second largest exchange behind Coinbase, having doubled in value. So, and then we have something else that is also impacting in terms of the whole crypto space, and that is the banking industry, which has a lot of cryptocurrency divisions forming more and more and more. And they're reporting earnings this week, so the banks are. So this is really going to be an explosive week. And if you're already positioned, good for you. And if you're looking to get a position, I'd probably wait a little bit to midweek after some of that dust settles, as I mentioned before, in terms of getting involved. But it's going to be exciting to have something to actually legitimately trade through the Coinbase. I think it's going to bring a lot more retail investors in.
Michele, welcome back. What is the more bearish scenario for Coinbase? Because as you said, it's really hard to make any predictions, but there's just so much hype right now. And, some analysts have pointed out various risk factors. I'm just curious, if things were to go less well than expected, what would be some of the factors that would potentially drive prices down over the short and long term?
Well, over the short term, I really don't see all that much. Although what is interesting is the whole crypto space is untested if we get into any kind of a dicey geopolitical situation. And the big news this morning is that Russia is amassing troops near Ukraine. Ukraine's asking for help, and the price of oil just shot up as a result. So this whole debate about crypto versus gold and what really is going to be the hedge, not just for inflation, but like I said, something we haven't really seen, which is what the potential of a war. Who knows? I mean, it could be something that people race to, cryptocurrency, more than gold. Gold could play a catch up. I wouldn't necessarily call that a caveat, but it's definitely something to be aware of. But I think the biggest thing longer term would be the threat of any type of situation where decentralization gets taken away. I don't see that happening. But certainly when you're looking at something like China that's trying to come up with a digital currency, which will be very much centralized, does that make a threat to cryptocurrency? Remains to be seen. At this point now, the coins themselves, I think you'll start to see rotation, where Doge gets strong, Litecoin gets strong, but, something else, Bitcoin may just sit steady. But overall, I really think the future is there's always going to be loopholes. Something else is going to emerge because the technology is definitely the most exciting technology to come out in my lifetime that I can remember, other than the initial internet back in the dinosaur days.
Mish, do you think we'll see the tail wagging the dog here, where a rally in Coinbase could lead to a rally in crypto and in the product that Coinbase sells? So kind of the opposite of what you would expect.
So you're asking if a rally in Coinbase would be good or bad? If a rally in
Coinbase's shares would ultimately lead to an excitement in the market that could cause a rally in, let's say, Bitcoin for it to break above that 61,000 level, or ETH to break above the $2,200 level.
Absolutely. I think we're already seeing that over the weekend, just in anticipation of the Coinbase happening this week. And people were asking me, there was a big story, Barron's, the cover of Barron's, is at the top because, now all of a sudden Barron's is even paying attention to cryptocurrency. And no, I mean, it's just there's just more in every day you wake up to news. To try to keep up with all the news on cryptocurrency is a full-time job, as you guys know, in and of itself. So as far
in all fairness, when Barron says, is this the top, that the answer is always no, but that's a different story.
Michele, you mentioned that there's an altcoin rally, but you invest exclusively in stocks. So how are you gaining exposure in the alts?
That's a really good question, and I'm trying desperately to figure it out. So one of the things that we've been researching here is, well, first of all, in terms of just our own way of trading at Marketgauge, we have a lot of quant models, and we're actually looking into creating a quant model for the cryptocurrency space, which would include a lot of the altcoins. But right now, we're long Ethereum and we're long Bitcoin through the grayscale in both of them. And they may not be as exciting, but they're certainly making money. And we're trying to figure out exactly where we should go. A lot of it, we're looking at some of these mining companies. We're also looking at Green Sky is another one that has to do with banking. So that's how we're doing it, is we're looking at alternatives. We're looking for Coinbase because we hope that will really be a good place for us to trade. But yeah, at this point now, we haven't pulled the trigger on those altcoins.
Okay. Thank you so much, Michele, for joining us this morning, giving us your insights on the markets.
Thank you so much for having me.
That was Marketgauge Managing Director Michele Schneider. Coming up, Sotheby's foray into auctioning NFTs, and checking in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day.
When we say we want to reimagine money, it turns out we're going to the heart of the matter. Imagination has always been a key part of what money is. Imagination, in the form of cultural creativity, is also something that the cryptocurrency community has in spades. And to the outsider, that can be a reason to dismiss it as frivolous, as something built on nothing. To dismiss it for these reasons, though, is to ignore that all money is imagined.
Welcome back. Time to check in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who is also the editor of CoinDesk's The State of Crypto newsletter. Hello, happy Monday, Nick.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. All right, so is there a possibility that Gary Gensler could get confirmed as the SEC chair this weekend? And why is it taking so long?
Yeah, so I believe that's coming up right before the Senate went on recess near the end of last month. They did begin the procedural moves that would see Gary Gensler be confirmed through the full Senate. So I think it's just, the Senate's been they've been looking at various issues, and I guess SEC chair has been maybe not the foremost priority on that list, but they did file cloture right before the Senate went on recess, and they're coming back this week. So my guess is they might vote to confirm him to his role, hopefully in the next week or two.
Nick, what's happening on the ETF front? I know you've been following some new developments.
So if you asked me about an hour ago, I would have said there are now 8 active applications before the SEC. There are now 9 active applications before the SEC. Galaxy Digital just filed their form for a Bitcoin ETF. And the SEC's announced it's reviewing 2 of them so far, Van X, which began last month, and Wisdom Tree, which began on Friday. So we are seeing a lot of, I don't want to say hype, but there's a lot of excitement around this idea that an ETF might actually be approved in 2021. And I think we're seeing that in just the volume of not just the fact that there are that many ETF applications. We've had 9 ETF applications before, but what it is this year there are 9 different companies filing. In years past, we'd have 2 or 3 companies filing multiple ETF applications at once, and that's not happened yet, as far as I know. So there's definitely just a lot of excitement right now around this idea.
Nick, when you say that normally you would have at least one application, so was Van Eck, right? That was always the story. All right, so is now the time to do it, because by the time the review process happens, Gary Gensler would most likely become chair and to approve it? Is that why they're all jumping in now?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Gary Gensler is definitely seen as the SEC chair who might, approve an ETF. It's still a long process, especially if the SEC takes the full allotted time that they have available to them to review an application. It's something like 200 something days. So, if you're filing for an application now, you're, I guess, planning for it to be approved by the end of the year. So yeah, by then Gensler will definitely be in office, and there's going to be several months of comment period, so people can weigh in. Right now, there's only been like 5 comments on the Van Eck application, so not a lot happened, or not a lot of people have done that yet. But in theory, all that can happen. Yes.
Be interesting to see if anyone gets that first mover advantage. Thank you so much for the update, Nick.
Thank you.
All right, that was CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Policy and Regulation, Nick Day. Don't forget to sign up for the State of Crypto newsletter on CoinDesk.com.
The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
Historic auction house Sotheby's unveiling a series of NFTs on the auction block today through Wednesday in collaboration with digital artist Pak and NFT platform Nifty Gateway. Joining us now to discuss is Sotheby's head of contemporary afternoon auction, Max Moore. Welcome, Max.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. All right. So last month, Christie's made history, auctioning Beeple's 5,000 Days NFT for about $70 million, making him the third most valuable living artist. So are you hoping to achieve something similar with this auction?
You know, I had a feeling you were going to ask this question. It's difficult to gauge where we think the total volume of the sales will go, just given how new and exciting and different this marketplace is. But what we strove to include in this sale is an open edition component, which allows as many people as possible who are interested and engaged to purchase a work in this sale. So I hope the headlines do read, of course, a great overall total, but additionally, just how many people are interested in pursuing and purchasing a work from this collection.
Well, who is Pak and what is this series all about?
So Pak is a digital creator, artist that's been focusing on NFTs for quite some time now, but is completely anonymous to everyone. And I've had several conversations over the past few months, exploring and understanding what drives Pak and their creation process. And I'd really classify them as a kind of minimal digital artist that really speaks to the conceptual aspects of what crypto art can become. And I think that's really what drove me to have this light bulb moment when I got in connection with Pak, that digital art and art in and of itself can exist, without a physical component to it. I think that's a real interesting discovery that we can start exploring now at Sotheby's.
So just to throw a more existential question your way, the whole point of NFTs is that it's kind of part of this decentralized crypto movement. A lot of these NFT platforms have auction functions on the site. So why do you actually need an auction house like Sotheby's or Christie's to be involved with this process at all?
I mean, it's a good point. I think, Sotheby's can lend an educational, curatorial aspect to the NFT marketplace, I think, which is kind of necessary as we continue to build the foundations of the marketplace. I'm not yet. This is quite a new and interesting and unique, opportunity that we're approaching. But I do believe that, over time, there will be a curatorial aspect that drives, just how forward thinking and forward moving this marketplace becomes.
It's just a little bit ironic because the whole idea of NFTs, right, is to cut out the middleman, right, and sort of democratize the art world. So, once you start bringing in these big prestige auction houses, it does kind of undercut that mission, wouldn't you say?
In a way, yes. But the way I see Sotheby's kind of intersecting within this marketplace is to promote the quality of the artists that we believe in, and there's a lot of kind of noise, a lot of artists that have come into the marketplace right now, and we kind of represent again an educational aspect of the market that can bring education and clear direction to people's collecting habits.
Max, what do people own with this auction? What are they going to get? Is it a link? Is it a file? Files are too big generally for the blockchain itself. I mean, do they get rights to a file? And then there are all these buy 50 of them, what, can you explain it?
Yeah, so it was a little difficult for me to understand at first, but you're buying Pak's concept. You're buying their creation in a way. You're buying the master copy. Now, because of the open edition, there will be a lot of the similar pieces out there in circulation. So there is questions of scarcity and rarity, or concerns, I would say. But knowing Pak and knowing how they approach, the creation process, they are very aware of this and understand how to combat this in the long term. And so I think that's what you're going to see here.
Which would be how? I mean, how do you tell the paddle wavers, the traditional collectors, how do you get them to not be befuddled by all this?
Yeah, so I think I've had various conversations with our, pre-existing clients, but it is a rather polarizing topic, I would say. And this first sale was really, to gain access and to gain, direct conversations starting with some of the more crypto heavy collectors that have really pushed the NFT marketplace to where it is today. So I think this sale really favors, a new audience and new creators as we understand and approach kind of which direction we want to take, and the idea that the total number of people that end up purchasing will be a nice talking point to continue the conversations with other traditional collectors.
Max, you say polarizing. I want to touch up on that because you've had most of your career in the traditional art world, and now you're seeing this new innovation of digital art. How do you feel on a personal level, from paintings, dealing with sculptures, physical items, to this digital world that may seem, very new, perhaps frivolous to some in terms of the mania? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's great. I don't necessarily see the kind of NFT crypto art movement as a cannibalization of the physical art world and the traditional sell here at Sotheby's. Rather, I believe it's an extension and can exist all under one umbrella, and it won't be for everyone. That's for sure. I mean, and that's another reason why contemporary art is not for everyone, or old master paintings are not for everyone. So we are just reaching a completely new audience that may have never interacted with Sotheby's previously, but are completely enamored by this new medium and this new collecting style, and are very interested in finding out more and getting involved in different ways.
And you will be taking crypto for this auction, correct?
That's correct. We partnered with Nifty Gateway, who is one of the leading marketplaces for NFT sales, and they are accepting crypto as well.
Do you see any part of Sotheby's traditional business changing as a result of NFTs? Is there an effect that you think will happen to what you've always been doing that might somehow change because of the way NFTs are done?
So I think it's a great question. I think there's different ways that you can understand how the technology of blockchain can kind of promote the efficiency at Sotheby's here. Obviously, right now, this sale explores, the creative side. But I do think that ultimately we could adopt some of the more, underpinnings of the technology to increase the efficiency of our traditional, way we run our business, basically. And that, it's unclear how this all develops and how it unfolds, but it's a conversation that we've been having and monitoring as we continue to understand which direction we want to take and move forward.
All right, Max, very fascinating. Good luck on this auction series.
Thank you.
All right, that was Sotheby's head of contemporary afternoon auction, Max Moore. Time now to check in with crypto Twitter with our tweet of the day. This one from Raoul Pal, investor and founder, CEO of Real Vision Group. I'm still struggling to get my head around what CZ of Binance built in such a short time and what Sam Bankman-Fried of Alameda Research and FTX has built in an even shorter time. This space moves at light speed or faster. Both are undervalued versus Coinbase. Don't own either, but will once I get spare cash. All right, so that is it for First Mover. Thank you, Emily Parker, our CoinDesk Managing Director of International Content, and Lawrence Lewitinn, Managing Editor of Global Capital Markets. Tomorrow, our special guest will be Lex Solkolin from Consensus Global FinTech Co-Head. I'm your host, Christine Lee. I'll be back live at 3 p.m. with all about Bitcoin. Coming up at noon is The Hash. You're watching CoinDesk TV.